Okay, hi, I want to give a short explanation about this patch and what I'm actually doing with the files I've modified and added. Um, if you have a look at the patch, well, you of course see that some of the documentation has changed, some of the Caref packaging has been changed, so I'll explain later what this does. In short, well, only these two files have been added, which is the configuration file for the start and stop scripts, and the stop script itself, which is just a little bit modified version of the Caref stop script. Well, and then down here you will see that the service files who have been added, and as before there are service files for an installation in /opencast and an installation in the system itself, which then opencast resides at users share opencasts, which is basically more for packaging and so on. So, well, these two files and these two files are exactly the same except for the path, so reviewing only one set should definitely suffice. And then finally one of the configuration files has been changed, but I'll talk about that later. So starting opencast as a service or starting Caref as a service, you will usually find this page. And this page explains how to start Caref as a service using the Java server wrapper. This works, but this has a couple of drawbacks. First of all, you'll need to run or install this through opencast or through running opencast itself. There are some ways you can circumvent this, I found out, but it's not that nice. So you can't just have easy packaging and so on and so forth. The second drawback is that this Java service wrapper will actually make opencast architecture dependent. So these are binary files which are just pulled in. They're not built for files. They're just binary blobs which were pulled in, and they're for one architecture only. So you can't just build it and then transfer it to another system and have it run there. So it won't work anymore. And then the third drawback is something we've seen with ActiveMQ. When we started using ActiveMQ, ActiveMQ is usually using the same service wrapper as well, and we've seen it fail on a couple of occasions, and in the end we went from using service wrapper to using systemd directly, which works a lot of more stable, and well, that's why I wanted to go the same way with opencast directly. So away from this and, well, to the actual patch. And here I have an opencast which it just compiled. So we have an assembly already. And I'm not going into the patch, but I'm going into the actual assembly and then go to the pull request later to explain some details. So going into the assembly, so I'm using the all-in-one example. And it looks pretty normal, except for if you have a look at bin, you'll notice that we have not only the start opencast, but also the stop opencast script. And sorry, well, I can then usually start opencast just running the start script, and it would give me an interactive shell. So let's wait a second for this to start up. So I got an interactive shell, I got this fancy message, and so on and so forth. So we don't really want this, and of course you can do things like running logtail, which will give us an opencast log, but we don't need that, so let's get away. And I can stop this by hitting Control D. Well, as I said, we don't really want that, and this script has actually a couple of options, which is, I think, if I remember correctly, it's service for just run this without the interactive shell. It's stop for stopping opencast, it's status for giving a status report, and so on. And we can use that with systemd directly. So let's shortly switch to the systemd files. So go out of the distribution here. Oh, sorry. I've actually started this again. Well, it takes a while to go to, so it just switch to another shell. So dev opencast, and now let's have a look at docs, scripts, service, and we'll just have a look at the opt version. And looking at systemd unit file, we start with the unit file because it's way easier than an init script. And if you work a little bit with sys5 init and systemd, you will always notice that scripts are way easier. So yes, basically this. So I run the start script with the server argument, and it will start opencast in non-interactive shell. Usually that would actually suffice. If you then at one point stop opencast using systemd, it would send a SIG term to this process, and well, opencast would shut down. The problem here is that the people inventing Java had the good idea to not properly handle the signals, but they will say, okay, we have something running in our kind of virtual machine, so the Java virtual machine, and maybe that needs to do something, but we don't really know, so we return an error if we get a SIG term, but then terminate it. And the error is basically defined as this was shut down via an external process. So we could actually handle that, but then what it also will do, it usually using OSGI, the OSGI server, when it turns down, it will stop all the bundles one after another and call the deactivate method of each bundle. And well, now it just wouldn't do that, it would just stop. And I'm pretty convinced that using opencast at the moment it would work like this, because I've never seen something important in a deactivate method. If it's there at all, it's usually only logging something or something like that. But at some point, a developer might think that's a good idea to add some code there, which is really, really important. So I didn't want to go that way. And sorry, yeah. So what you would do then is to say, okay, you can use the same script and add the stop method at the end, and this will stop opencast. But now here comes a weird thing. It does this by sending a predefined command to a network port. This network port needs to be open, and this is changed to the configuration I made. We'll have a look at it later. So this network port is now open, and it will send this command, but then it will terminate itself. Why is that a problem? Well, systemd would then say, okay, the stop process has terminated itself, but the actual process is still running, so something is definitely wrong. I'll try to turn it off myself, and well, it will then send a SIG term again, and we have the same problem we had before. You can actually deactivate this behavior, so you can say kill mode is none in this file, and that would work. But then if this process stops itself, so the command is sent via network, but then opencast would not go down gracefully, but just hang or something like that. Well, then systemd or system5 init would just say, okay, it's down, but it's actually still up, and we had a state which, well, opencast is basically broken, or the system is basically broken, and you would have to manually kill the service or something like that. So we won't want to have that. So that's not a good idea. So what you actually want to do is for this process, so the stop process, to wait for the main process to shut down and only then terminate itself. So send the command, wait for the main process to shut down, then terminate yourself. And that's actually what this script is doing. It's a slightly modified version of the original stop script. And we'll have a look at this in just a second. So yeah, having a look at the other file, which is the init script for the sys5 init system, it's actually doing exactly the same, just it's, well, way larger, and it has all these targets which you will usually expect from a stop script, from a init script, and so on. So, well, yeah, you can use it as a usual init script, but it does exactly the same as using a unit file, except for it creates a log, which will happen automatically if you use systemd. So let's go back to the actually build assembly. So let's go in here and let's have a look at the stop script. Sorry, vim stop opencast. Yeah, we notice that here is still the Apache Software Foundation header because it's basically their script. It is only just a little bit modified. And the main modification is really down here. So usually what this would do is to just call the main script with stop. So this is the main script, it would call stop, and well, I explained why this is a bad idea. But it's still in here because you can turn off the creation of a process identifier file, and that maybe you can't actually identify the process, the main process. And if that's turned off, I just didn't want to just say, okay, something's weird going on, I can't stop it anymore, but I'll use this still as a fallback. But well, usually we would not do that, but what we would do is that if we have a process ID file, we would well, we would check if the file actually exists and so on, but then we'll just get the process ID from this file, which is this here, and bring this into netcat and say, okay, netcat, please post sorry, let me start again on this line. So would echo, of course, the shutdown command. Shutdown command is a command that actually says it's configured in the script, in the configuration. Then would pipe this into netcat. Netcat would send this to localhost, and the port we'll get from the port configuration file. And well, this is exactly what the start opencast stop would do internally, so what Karaf would do internally, exactly this line. But then we'll just wait for, or get the process ID from the process ID file and wait until this process ID disappears, just have a loop and sleep here, and so in the end, when this is done, script terminates itself and everything's well. So now we have this functionality which we want to have, which is the synchronous shutdown. and everything else I have added here is just reads the files, reads the configuration, and so on. So if we quickly go through this, there is a function grab property, which which is just running grab on the configuration files in the care etc directory, and then it splits it at equal sign and trims the argument of the configuration, and if there are more than one configuration, it will actually use the last one it finds. So this is one method I added. The other one is this one, and we have some things we can use in this configuration path, and these are actually these 4 directories, which is care of base and care of home, which are usually configured to be the same, but maybe someone changes that. And then it's care of data and care of etc, and actually the process ID files into by default are configured to use care of data. So this will just run sed and replace it with the actual values. So now down here, first thing we want to get is the shutdown command. We definitely need that. So if we do not get that one, we can't shut down opencast. So that's definitely an error, and would die with an error or with a warning. And what we do is just use the function I've explained above and grab for the configuration key care of shutdown command. The second thing we'll get is shutdown port. Of course, again, we'll need it is if the shutdown port is not there, we can't shut down opencast properly. So here would use the same function, so grab for this key, and then we use replace because this might be configured to use one of the paths defined above. And we'll make sure that the port file exists and that we can get this option, and then that the port file exists, because if the option exists but not the port file, then again we can do nothing. Finally we'll then get the process ID file. Again, this is something you can configure and is configured using this key, and we'll get that. We'll again use replace on this, check that it exists. If it does not if it's not set, we'll use the fallback. If it's set, it should exist. If it's not existing, we'll definitely have an error because something weird is going on. Maybe it's already stopped. And finally we will send a command to this and wait for the process ID to go away. So that's basically it. Let's go back to the pull request then. So what has changed? If we have a look at the configuration status, if we have a look at the packages, then I've added these resources. Oh yeah, exactly. During the assembly of Karaf, this is a folder which holds the start and stop script, so they will be added fairly at the beginning, so they don't, so they won't be overwritten. Then this is the usual set environment script, which by default has everything commented out, but I just wanted this to exist in every distribution so that people can actually change this option and don't have to copy this in. Then this is a stop opencast script. We just had a look at with the things I've already explained. You've seen that I've added some documentation. Most of the documentation I added to the actual installation guides, but for the single server system. But I also added one line here about what to share. As Sven noticed, there is a typo in this. For the configuration, I just said that please make sure the paths are actually correct, and then copy this into the system and use systemd to start this up. Or in case you're using sys5init, well, do it the sys5init way. There are more than one configuration files for this. This is then the initd script. Well, we've actually already seen this, so let's go over to the last one, which is the configuration that has changed. And you've seen that before the shutdown port was turned off, which isn't such a bad idea by default, but well, we actually need it, so we need this another open network port, but it's actually only it listens only to localhost, so that should be okay from the security perspective. There's no real other way to do it with Karaf at the moment. Yeah, so we want this to be created in Karaf data by default. We still add this. Right, we want Karaf log, which is something different in there. It's a log file so that Karaf don't get started 2 times at the same time. And then the shutdown port is this one, which is just commented out. So this will pick a random port, and then we have the process ID file, which is created in Karaf data and is called PID by default. You can actually change this. And then finally, we have the shutdown command, which is predefined in just some random UUID. And if you want, you can change that as well. So this is basically it. And I have to check if the port file configuration is correct. So it might be that it's actually already configured somewhere else. But yeah, that's something for me to check again. Yeah, that's basically it. So if you have any questions, let me know.